A lot has changed since the end of last season. The faithful HPD has been replaced, and Chevrolet has thrown its hat in the ring for the GT cars. But one thing that remains the same is the high pressure environment and high levels of talent that abound. Another familiar factor is the opening round taking place at Daytona International Speedway. The regulars will know what they're up against tonight, but what facets will catch out the newcomers? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch round one of the Autobahn Sportscar Challenge, and you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Adam Young and Bill Soupzon. Behind the scenes is our director, Sean Crackers Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Daytona often kicks off the season of sports car racing in the real world as well with the 24 Hours of Daytona. To learn a little bit more about this place, let's head to our track guide. Welcome to the Daytona International Speedway. While many oval fans associate this Central Florida track with mainly NASCAR, the road course has gained just as much worldwide fame thanks to it hosting motorcycles and sports cars for decades. In fact, the flagship road race, the 24 Hours of Daytona, has become a major draw for drivers of all disciplines, many eager to have a go at endurance racing. The stats make this place sound relatively simple, with 12 corners on the regular road circuit and 14 on the NASCAR version, both spread amongst 3.5 miles. Indeed, a majority of the lap is spent on the oval portion, where you fly along the notoriously steep banking. But it's easy to underestimate the challenge presented to the drivers. The infield portion begins with the scary kinked entry of Turn 1. Not only is it the fastest part of the track, but the transition from the banking to the flat tends to upset the car as you slow it down. There's also the bus stop chicane on the backstretch. Added in the 80s, this is a tricky piece of circuit that punishes a poor exit severely, with it leading back into the latter half of the oval. As you'd expect, the long periods on throttle mean that drafting tends to play a factor in the racing. It also means passing isn't usually too great of an issue if you have the pace to catch someone. The more difficult thing is managing to gap your opponent so that they don't ride in your slipstream once you get by. With half a century of endurance racing collected among these walls, it's not unfair to say that road racers have just as much claim to call Daytona home. Fans who come to watch certainly won't be disappointed by the high speeds and fantastic thrills it invariably provides each year. You see a little bit about Daytona International Speedway, but Adam, I'd say that it's good to be back. It's been a little bit off here, but what are we expecting with these three classes, especially since we've got one of them slightly different than prior to previous seasons?
Yeah, I mean, one thing you're going to notice right away is the HPD being faster. Excuse me, the LMP2, I've already messed it up. It's probably going to happen again here tonight. But the LMP2 being faster than what the HPD was, even just the looks of it being in a closed cockpit, the faster closing speeds on the slower classes, it's really going to be exciting here. And the drafting game is probably going to be more important here than ever, which is going to be just great racing. I really think this is going to be an hour and a half of just fantastic racing, as Daytona usually puts on over this 12-turn, 3.56-mile layout. One important thing to note, I know there might be some people out there, maybe you're a NASCAR guy that's just getting onto Autobahn here for the first time. They don't use the NASCAR layout. The NASCAR layout's the new one. These guys are using the traditional road course layout here without that chicane coming out of turn 4. So that's going to be a fun one here today. And I'm looking forward to it, Joe. I really am. I think these cars are going to race really well together.
I have to admit, I know we're not supposed to play favorites, but this is one of my favorite series that we cover. So I'm looking forward to it as well. Now, Soup, you've got the update on last season's championship and how things went. Why don't you fill us in?
We'll go ahead and start with the prototypes. Let's go with Billy Smith. He sits third all-time in career wins. He's got 26 of them. 6 of those came last season on the way to his title. He defends that title for a newly formed Autobahn North this season. The only driver with a win last season in the top 5 is Jason Girard, which exemplifies how attrition-prone this class really is. Luke Carbonell, well, he returns, staying in class, as does John. Alan Wolf is back. He's racing for Lap Rat Racing. And then there's no McGarveys this season. Both of them, Stephen and Scott, going to take this one out. Let's go ahead and look at what was then called the GTEs. Jason DeVries sits just 2 back of Billy Smith in career wins with 24. It took 7 of those in season 9 to outdistance hard luck driver Bradley Haley, who had 4. Both drivers move up to the Dallara, with DeVries with Revo Satellite Racing and Haley with Gone Broke. Kevin Binkley has 12 career wins, but surprisingly none of them came last season. 3rd place effort. He stays put with Autobahn East. Mike Young has taken the season off. Carter Kundiga returns. He's moving up in class, and he's going to race in for AOD Racing. Let's finally look at the AM class down there. That was called GTD at the time. The AM championship went to Paul Lindsay. Lindsay's jumping up classes. He's going to be racing in the GTLMs for Lap Rat Racing. His Lap Rat teammate Kevin Santana returns, sticking down in the AM class. Eric Antilli is back as a privateer. It would hardly be Autobahn season without Sheldon Rosenbaum coming off a victory in season 9. He'll race with Autobahn West, joining Lindsay in the GTLMs. And Tim McLeish stays in class for warm-up lap team. Finally, when you look at the team championships, you can see the winners there. I'm just going to quickly talk about how they have that distributed. They rank the drivers either by platinum, gold, silver, or bronze. They give them each a number: 10, 8, 6, and 5, 29-point cap. You got to mix up your teams accordingly, and it makes a great championship in the teams racing, as no one can really stock up on top-tier talent. Joe?
Yep, that's the system that I believe first started last season, and they continue with it this season, and it certainly puts on a fascinating battle in that team's championship. Now, if we do have new viewers, first of all, welcome, and I hope you're ready for some excitement, because this is going to be frantic if previous seasons are anything to go by, because 90-minute races are their long format, but we have a lot of cars out here, and there are 3 classes that are trying to take up this track, so they all have to navigate each other, and that's what makes it so action-packed. There's the 3 classes: the prototypes, the GT Pros, and GTMs, with each of the cars that they are able to drive among them. And most interestingly, they have no fast repair in this series. So if you damage the car, you basically just have to try and get some of that repaired during your pit stop, or try and deal with it until then. Of course, we are in qualifying right now. They've got the last of the qualifying sessions going, as they have 3 of them split up between the GTM, GT Pro, and now the prototypes, the fastest of them trying to get the overall pole, which currently belongs to Paul Darling. But Adam, I'm looking at the times, and it looks like DeVries, Darling, and Romagnolo are really ready to give us a show. It is less than a 10th between the 3 of them.
Yeah, less than half a tenth go back to DeVries. I mean, that's just a whiff of a draft, or just a slightly different line somewhere. I mean, that's that difference is negligible, really, especially here at Daytona. So it'll be interesting to see if he's able to make that up. And Joe, you talk about a lot of cars, and I think that's going to be one of the biggest stories of the race here today is the field. 59. Here's see what the last lap is. Not do anything there, so Harley's an outlap or something. 59 cars currently registered for this session. That's almost iRacing's maximum is 60. Just to give you a good idea of how many cars we're going to have out there. And so far, everybody is in the session with 5 minutes to go here.
Yeah, this is going to be impressive to watch. Paul Darling, unfortunately, spins out to the infield there, so it looks like he's going to have to get back out there and try for one more. And Carter Kundinger, who comes down to the line, sets another lap, but unfortunately, it looks like he must have had an off or something around there. Speaking of offs, they do have an incident limit in this series as well, Bill, 36, and there's no drive-through penalty on that. It's just straight to a DQ at that 36. At a track like this with that bus stop, I wonder if that's going to be a little bit of a fear.
Yeah, they just blink away to the Amelia Earhart Bar and Grill there if they hit that number. We've seen it happen before. We've been around long enough. I remember David Binkley hitting that number on the final corner at Phillip Island, where he blinked away, lost himself a podium spot because of it. Indeed, and Daytona's the kind of place where you can get those, and you can actually almost save them like as a off to pass if you want. You can pick up a little bit of time. So if you ration them out, you may want to save them to the end when the racing is important, when you're trying to gain on something.
Romagnolo just crossed the line, but looks like that was another one without a lap counted, so he also must have had an off. I'm surprised to see Robert Tinsey down in 5th place. Bob the Blade is apparently still adjusting a little bit to this new car. He's about 6/10 off the pole. I mean, we've seen this in other series too when they switch cars around. Something people who are incredibly fast find themselves maybe a little bit more of a specialist to specific ones.
Yeah, and you know, that's one reason too why I really like this series, and the fact that, of course, one of the other major series that we do is, well, the majors. And you know, we're different cars almost every single time we race and all that. You know, different cars, different disciplines, and you look at the majors drivers that have either raced in the majors before, still are currently, like Paul Darling, like Joshua Wolf, like Tinsey, like David Williams. Ulmer has had some starts in the majors. Jimbo Pfeiffer in the GT Pro Series. I mean, the list goes on. And you know, but they all adapt a little bit faster than what other guys otherwise would, because there is definitely a learning curve between these three different classes. It's all about adaptability if you want to change classes.
Now, speaking of adaptability, this is a track known for giving quite a bit of a slipstream, and you were talking about that earlier with Roman Yolo and De Vries needing maybe just a little bit of one to move up. Roman Yolo's got one right now. He's behind the two that we're watching on screen. Oh, but he crosses the line, and it's another one that didn't count. Those two in front of him, that was Billy Smith towing along. Oh, and I think I lost him already. I didn't quite see who it was that he was pulling along there. This is Bradley Haley now, who has jumped over to the prototypes. Does not get a lap in, unfortunately. Josh Wolf going to come to the line himself. And man, we just keep catching them when they're not going to put one down. So he still is in fourth. That's on the outside of the second row. I kind of wonder about this start. We see this every season, Bill, and I alluded to it in our intro that the first race always seems just a little bit more crazy with the newcomers coming in.
Yeah, and add to that the new car. There was a lot of talk about closing rate in the forums. The drivers were saying they got really comfortable with the HPD, and honestly, I was stepped away from the series for a season, came back, and was impressed early on when Autobahn started. There was a lot of controversy how you do multi-class racing. Boy, they had really had it figured out the last few seasons. I think it's going to be a bit of a learning curve coming up here. A lot of new drivers, and the closing rate from the new car, those slower classes, they got to check their mirrors and then check them again.
Yeah, we saw a lot of chatter about that amongst the drivers pre-race. Concern, some of them worried that, I mean, they come into corners and they had checked just a second or two ago, and then suddenly there's a car there. That's how fast they arrive. So we're seeing if Tinsey can maybe put one down. Nope, not one for him this time. What about David Warner down in 13th? Looks like 1:43.8, not going to be quicker. So we've switched back to Josh Wolf, who's coming out of NASCAR 4, seeing if he can get onto the first row. Is this going to be quick enough? It's a 32.8 for his last one, and he is a 33.8, about a second off, unfortunately, and only 1 minute left now in the qualifying. So it is trickling down to the dying stages. If they want to improve, they've got to do it this time by.
They are. I mean, this is the last chance, last hurrah, however you want to put it. You got guys like Ulmer that are going to be coming out there. Here comes Carter Kindiger. Here he knocks off a little. No, actually, he doesn't. He was about a 5/100ths off from improving his time right there. Paul Darling might have gotten across the line with enough time to finish this lap. That'd be good for him. Leif Peterson out there. A bunch of guys that really stand to gain here on this lap if they can just find the right spot.
I was watching John Ulmer, and he didn't manage to go any quicker. Tinsey is going to be the first to take the checkered flag. And those behind him can finish their hot lap, but Tinsey is coming into pit lane. He decides it's not going to be quick enough. David Warner will be next in the 33. Down into the tri-oval. He'll stick with it. He's trying to improve on a 33.6. And it's still slow for him, unfortunately.
And that's unfortunate. He was wanting to get a little bit more right there.
Roman Yolo, or excuse me, Haley not able to go quicker. This is Robert Kanchin on screen now. And the 199, he sits 14th, second to last in his class, and he's going to start there unless somebody behind him manages to improve, which is only Mark Wilson for the time being.
And I don't know if you saw DeVries there. I mean, he was only 200 slower than his previous best time, so he almost was able to improve and make up some of that gap.
Carter Gundinger abandons his lap. I believe that will leave Ulmer, Wilson, and Williams as the last three to be able to put a time down. It's still Paul Darling on provisional pole. Ulmer is a big maybe. He doesn't seem to be as quick in this car as he was in the HPD. As he crosses the line, it's a 33.5, but that will not bump him up any positions. Mark Wilson, a 34 flat. That still keeps him in 15th, unfortunately. That will round out our qualifying. So the grid is set for round one here today of the Autobahn Sportscar Challenge. Paul Darling has the pole. Jason DeVries is going to be starting next to him. And then on the inside of row 2, Giuliano Romagnolo will be P3. Josh Wolf to his outside starts 4th, followed by Leif Peterson in P5. It's Robert Tinsey starting in 6th, and David Williams on the inside of row 4 in 7th. Bradley Haley starting P8. Expected maybe a little bit more out of Bradley here on the first race, but still he'll be in the middle of the pack. Billy Smith starts 9th, and Luke Carbonneau rounds out your top 10. John Ulmer will be starting in 11th. Another one that I'm a bit shocked he's starting that far down. Carter Kundinger in 12th, is then followed by David Warner in 13th. Robert Canchin P14, and the last of the prototypes is Mark Wilson in 15th. Adam?
All right, to lead off the field of the GT Pro Class, you're going to have Ross Booth back there, Jimbo Pfeiffer, Denise Svetrick, Brian Bennett, a guy that raced a lot against Brian there, great guy right there. Kevin Bigley be starting with him. Going on to the next row, I believe the Young Park will be alongside Oliver Turcade, Stefan Jeffrey, Paul Savanek. Hey, Paul Savanek out there. He's racing for a new team this season in Autobahn, so looking forward to big things out of him. Sheldon Rosenbaum, Mark Anton Thibault, Paul Lindsay, Vince Bow, Mo Islam, Christopher Paz, and to round out the GT Pro field, Jerry Mueller and Lionel DePratt there from Texas.
Okay, I got 30 of these to do, so let's play the GSRC consumption game right now as I mispronounce how many of these. We'll find out. On the pole, it's Luke Schmidt. He's got Jeremy Dusty Rhodes right next to him. Jordan Muser going to be in the spot with Kevin Santana flanking him. It's Ryan Robertson and Ryan Walsh in the next row. Eric Gaudreau-Drapeau. I think I got that one right. Put your glass down. Kevin O'Keefe is outside of him. Shane Hunter and Joey Atterbury in the filling up the next row. Reggie Robertson and Dominic Dornenberg. David Perry and Dale Green. Mark Herzog Dawson, Never Say Die Brock, Jared Eden. Chris Sherburne is back. We got also Tim McLeish in the mix as well. Mark Kurowski with Matt Owens. Joey Sheldon Rosenbaum, Sean Reese, Cody Franklin, Joey Trungell, and I'm done.
I see Trevor McClure at the back. He didn't set a time, and he's still in the session, but he's not gridded, so I think he might be starting from pit lane here today. Before we get off on our partial pace lap, it's tradition for Autobahn. Who are your picks today? We'll start with Adam.
Oh, that's going to be a tough one there, but I'm actually liking Joshua Wolf. I mean, I've raced with him a lot on restrictor plate tracks and cup cars and everything else. The guy knows how to manage air, and I think to be at the front of the LMP2 class today, you're really going to have to manage air. So I'm going with my pick, and I'm also going to count him as a dark horse pick a little bit here too, but I like Joshua Wolf's chances.
Bill?
Yeah, I'm going to double. I hate to be repetitious, but I'm going to double Adam's pick there, Joshua Howland Wolf. We know him for sure. I think he's looking to pick up his first win. I like Zippy Ross Booth in the what would be the pro class down there, and then finally in the AMs that I'm covering, you gotta love a guy, Jeremy Dusty Rhodes. Seems like a guy with name Rhodes would be good out here on a road course, so I'm taking him.
Okay, as we come through the banking of NASCAR 3 and 4. What is it going to be? Paul Darling leads the way after taking pole position, but there is 90 minutes and many, many cars to overtake, well, at least to lap, before he reaches the checkered flag. Plenty of chances for any of these drivers to trip up. As the Pace car peels in. Darling waiting to go. Green flag is out. And Darling gets a good jump. In fact, they're pretty much straightening out behind him down to 4th or 5th as they pile into the first corner. This is looking smooth so far among our prototype starters, and it is a clean start. Let's go to Adam for the GT Pro.
Yeah, fall back to the GT Pro here. And these guys still rounding NASCAR turn through. Actually coming to the start finish line, he's getting a little bit behind. Brian Bennett back there gets a good jump. I actually like the start that he got. Ross Booth gets the best jump out of all, and he's taking this field down to turn 1. See if everybody gets through here. Turn 1, always a danger zone. Really, anywhere, any time during the race, this can be a danger zone to watch out for here. But everybody gets through clean.
Luke Smith just ahead of Rose with Muser, Santana, and Robertson right behind.
We're heading down into the first corner in the GT AMs. And Schmidt is well clear of the fields. It's a little bit packed up in the middle of the class there, as there are many side by side. You can see trying to sort it out through the S's, and one going off. That is, that's Drapeau. And unfortunately, he gets in contact with another car who smashes into the tires. We got 2 turned around at the International Horseshoe. Durnenberg involved in that, along with Shane Hunter. So the only class with problems, it seems, at the start is our GT AMs.
All the drivers get out there, Joe.
We'll come and check on that a little bit later. We're seeing a small breakaway up at the front. Paul Darling and Roman
Here's our
Yolo.
first big battle back here with Haley, Billy Smith going down trial. They are 3 wide back there. See how they all get through turn 1. I know this is mid-pack LMP2, but this got a little exciting here for a minute. Billy Smith trying to come back on Carter Kundiger. And then can't navigate around Bradley Haley, though. He's going to back them up a little bit. While that's going on, Leif Peterson saying, hey, guys, keep racing. I'm not going to pull away here.
Yeah, this is a fierce fight. You can see coming off the corner, that's Kundinger in the red machine to the inside with Billy Smith challenging him. They're going to stay side by side as they come up to the Western Horseshoe. Smith is strong on the brakes. Can he go the long way around and execute the pass? Not quite. Kundinger continues to fight him. But finally, as they break into turn 6, he gives it up and he leaves the door open for John Ulmer. 2 positions down in 1 lap for poor Carter Kundinger.
Yeah, and Carter, of course, that could give him a bad run here going down the back straightaway until they get to the bus stops. Have to use the draft to kind of recover from that a little bit. Let's see if he's able to come back on John Ulmer here going to the bus stop. Ulmer's going to take the inside. Kundinger is going to go ahead and look to the outside. Might be able to clear him here. Going to get that spot back.
Nicely done. Kundinger not going to let it go easily. Oh, but he bobbles off of the bus stop, and Ulmer gets another shot. The battle continues yet again, but Ulmer's on the high side.
While that was going on, Paul Darling loses the lead. He's going to lose second place, too, to Jason DeVries. Right now, Giuliano Romolino here is in the lead.
Roman Yolo up to the front, and DeVries can't fight it. Paul Darling back to 3rd now after starting on the pole position. They continue to gap Josh Wolf, who's about a 2nd behind them in the 4th position. You can see he's under heavy pressure from David Williams currently. Now, well, just a quick update that we did have a tow for Dominic Dornenberg, and I see Joe Steifel and Shane Hunter in the GT AM class, unfortunately also in pit lane. We'll try to get an update on what happened to them.
Hey, got a good battle here for, I believe it is 2nd place in GT Pro. Jimbo Pfeiffer and Brian Bennett going at it here. Great battle for those guys going through turn 1. Brian Bennett's going to be able to complete that pass. He got past him just going through the start-finish line, finishes the job going to turn 1 here. So great battle here for 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th in GT Pro.
Pass for the lead in the AM class there as Kevin Santana, who has already made his way around Dusty Rhodes earlier, has worked his way now around Schmidt, and he's now up in front.
So, looks like, whoa, and a bit of a mistake behind them. It looks like Rhodes actually going wide at turn 1. Jordan Musser is right on top of it, seeing if he can capitalize. You can see him in the inside to the dark-colored car. And as the 2 Audis go wheel to wheel through the International Horseshoe, it's going to go to Jordan, the 44, managing to get a nose ahead, and that looked like a lift there from having to give it up. It's not looking good in terms of race pace for the 49.
No, Rhodes qualified in second position, but going the wrong way. The guy to watch is Santana, a veteran of this class. He's cooking.
Meanwhile, up front, the LMP2 class here in the prototypes, man, Romolano had a lot of problems here with DeVries and Darling. Go ahead.
And Smith is off in the International Horseshoe, falling well down the order. I'm not sure what happened to him. I think he got help. I think Bradley Haley got into the back of him. Haley's going to lose 2 positions from that as well. He's in the 428 car. Let's see if we can find the incident. Should be into the International Horseshoe. So it looks like we might not have the replay, unfortunately.
Yeah, but I can confirm he did get a little bit of help there, and just right around just a gentle spin, but definitely he's got some ground to make up here.
So as we come back live, Smith is down to 15th and Haley is to 13th. Both of them suffered greatly from that incident. That is Smith on your screen in the blue and orange 901. Oh, I think we're getting up to traffic as well.
Yeah, well, we've been in traffic here for a while. It's kind of helped spark some of these battles that are going on right now. But it's also really hurt the guy that I picked here to maybe try to sneak one out, and that was Joshua Wolf, who's having to really hold off David Williams right now as they go through turn 1 while in the middle trying to get through some traffic.
Wow, this is where the franticness starts right here. The GTM suddenly getting flooded by these prototypes. And we talked about the closing rate. These are a great example of what they've got to experience for the next 90 minutes, an hour and 23 really. So far up at the front, Romagnolo is able to pull away, and unfortunately for Jason DeVries, he couldn't quite find the hole the same way that Giuliano could. Behind him, that allows Paul Darling to close up. Not enough track space to try and overtake, though. David Williams as well, having to tiptoe past all these slower class cars.
We were talking about adaptability earlier on there, Joe, and one thing that a lot of these guys here, the prototype drivers, are having to adapt to is the change in closing speed between the other classes, because it's much faster than what the HPD used to be.
That's very true. And as they come through the bus stop, oh, and the first incident caused by traffic. Oh! And wow, big hit between Tinsey and DeVries. Unfortunately,
he's still sliding on his lid.
Looks like Tim McLeish in the 95 was in front of them, and he didn't actually, or did he get hit? No, he did get clipped just a little bit by DeVries, and that's DeVries that you can see who went spinning. And then poor Robert Tinsey in the number 2 just comes in completely blind. We should get an onboard from this, and goes flying. There's the results of it as he winds up on his lid. Here's Tinsey's view. Oh, wow.
And I think Paul Darling might have got a piece of that too. He's still out there racing, but I think he might have clipped somebody as he went by.
Wouldn't be surprised. That could have been a much bigger incident for sure. As we come back to our leaders in the prototypes, still picking their way among many of our GTMs. In fact, it's holding up Paul Darling quite a bit. He's in 3rd, and he's unfortunately under threat going down into 4th as Josh Wolf almost got by him, but he himself got picked off by some of that traffic. So your order is Romagnolo leading by a massive 4.2 seconds, Darling right behind Williams, and then Wolf behind that pair in 4th.
And Romagnolo has finally cleared all the AM drivers. Now he can pick up the next class.
Yeah, with that, I mean, with him being able to clear all those guys and clear sailing here for a little bit, it's really going to help him gain his advantage, especially with DeVries out now.
Let's head to the battle for 3rd in the GT Pros. Jimbo Pfeiffer being chased by Kevin Binkley and Dennis Savretic. They're going to get caught up by these prototypes probably within the next 2 or 3 laps. So this could greatly affect the battle for the podium here. Onto the oval portion. That is Pfeiffer in the Corvette. the number double aught.
Oh,
Ooh, and Luke
Billy
Carbonell.
Smith. Billy Smith with a big incident again on the main straight. I think he's done. Okay. He got clipped on the main straight, put it in the wall, and he had problems earlier. He made contact with Carbonell.
Yeah, unfortunately, Luke Carbonell was part of that, and he was incredibly heated afterwards. In fact, Luke just spun right now and unfortunately sent Bradley Haley off. You can see him try to recover. Haley, actually a magnificent save by all. Can we get a replay of this?
Carbonell was racing a wounded animal.
We're going to see if we can get this.
There was such contact on the front straight that Carbonell had a wounded animal going in the corner. I'm not surprised that he spun it. And Billy Smith had some instructions of how Luke needs to drive.
It's a good thing that Smith didn't hit anything and was able to keep going. But I tell you what, the lead for the GT Pros is also closing in. Brian Bennett and Ross Booth are separated by 0.4 of a second currently. There you can see heading out of turn 6 and on to NASCAR 1. That's Booth in the Corvette, the Porsche belonging to the 161 of Brian Bennett. He's going to be able to reel him in on the slipstream here, Adam.
Brian Bennett's another one of those guys that really knows how to manage the air when he has the opportunity to. I mean, I'll be readily admit, too, he's taught me a thing or two over the past few years about road racing. And, you know, Ross Booth's going to have his hands full here with him because I don't think Brian Bennett's going to go away at this point.
Certainly not. Though he didn't get the best of exits out of the bus stop. And the 161 has got to reclaw back a little bit of that space. I thought that the Porsche would be a little bit better trying to drag him in, but I guess that Corvette is rather slippery in a straight line, it seems. Updates on Smith and Carbonell, don't need to go to them, but they've towed to the pits. Both of them taking repairs, unfortunately. You can see the sun going down. Of course, as they traditionally do, they're going to start with a sunset race, a twilight race here in the majors, in the Autobahn.
$5.
Yeah. There's like Adam was talking about, so many have crossed over from each series. Many familiar faces.
So just pointing this out here, so technically, because you know I love this stuff, Joe. And one thing I like about the Autobahn is the sim time is the actual date. So we are racing on December 7th in sim racing standard time, however you want to phrase it. Sunset is at 5:26 p.m. there in Daytona, Florida. And that's about 10 minutes away is actual sunset.
Let's head down to the GT AMS where we've got a battle for third. Luke Schmidt in the number 27 trying to hold off Jeremy Rhodes and Ryan Walsh, as well as Kevin O'Keefe, kind of all packed together in a quartet. Oh, and that's going to change one position, actually, because it appears that Walsh goes a little bit wide through the International Horseshoe. Kevin O'Keefe now finds himself up one.
Yeah, qualifying meaning very little in this division as Santana and Loser has moved up, and the guys who were up front, Schmidt and Rose, have fallen back.
At least got a small respite from all of the prototypes before they come around again for another pass. And on to the oval. Schmidt's going to be looking for a nice exit to keep Rhodes at bay. Meanwhile, Rhodes definitely wants to make up for his loss of positions early in the race after his qualifying didn't seem to pay enough dividends. And they come onto the back stretch. Rhodes is gaining. He's gaining. Does he dare try and pass this early into the bus stop? The answer is no. He lifts early. Get another shot at it.
Go ahead.
I was going to say he'll get another shot of it here out of the bus stop. And actually, he's much better. He'll have to go around the high side, though, as Schmidt holds low. There you can see the black Audi belonging to Rhodes. He's got the momentum, but he's got to complete it heading down into turn 1. Continuing to creep forward. He's now got a nose ahead of the number 27. Can he get this done? He's very deep on the brakes. Is it too deep? Can he get it down to the apex? Not quite. And they almost bang doors as they swing through. It's still not done. Luke Schmidt back ahead and fully beyond his car. Rhodes tries to brake deep enough to get an overlap into the International Horseshoe, and he does it. This time he could get by, and the 49 finally gets himself back on the podium.
You know, the fact that Luke Schmidt's able to hang in there with that kind of rear wing damage is pretty incredible. He's doing a whale of a job getting through the infield portion of this course in that Audi.
They're being joined. That's Luke Carbonneau. So he's a little bit off sequence here in the prototypes. And he's going to interrupt the battle, at least momentarily. All this is taking place behind our leader in the GT Pros, which is still Kevin Santana, 2.2 seconds ahead.
I believe you mean GTAM there that he's in front of.
Yes, thank you.
I got your back, Joe.
There we go. But yes, leading the GT-AM class, the 666, looking for another victory. Watching Carbonneau kind of weave his way through there.
Kind of got to the front, he was gone.
Well, you have to think he's motivated. He's missed out on the championship twice now. And last season, he finished, actually, I think last 2 seasons, he's finished 2nd place. Kevin trying to kick things off on the right foot.
Another Kevin to watch in that class, though, is O'Keefe. He's very, very, very competitive out there in his white and blue colored machine. Doing really well, car number 629. Right behind pole sitter Luke Schmidt.
You know, and that's the thing. I mean, we're all sitting here. We're now, what, just a few laps short for the LMP2s, the prototypes to be coming down pit road here. You know, and then followed along by the GT classes. But pit stops can change everything and shuffle all this up. So even though there's a 5 or 6 second lead right now for like O'Keefe for Santana over O'Keefe, that could evaporate very quickly. And the same goes for all these classes, especially on pit exit here. It's tough and things can happen.
You know, we had the camera on O'Keefe there for a while. And in the real world, you know what his custom license plate reads? iRacing.
Ah, interesting. I thought it was going to be a lawyer pun.
Yeah, well, those are too easy.
By the way, the GT Pro lead's still incredibly tight between Bennett and Booth. We haven't talked about it a whole lot. I kind of wonder if there's some fuel strategy shenanigans going on. If Bennett maybe is just hanging back here because he's been so close. I would have thought that he'd be able to slingshot by if he wanted to.
Well, we're thinking that the GT classes, both of them, AM and Pro, are probably just going to make 2 stops here today. And I would venture to say that they're not going to take tires. And that could very well be what Brian's thinking about here right now, that he might be able to get a couple of tenths off. This is really going to slow him up right here, getting mixed up with the GTAM class.
Oh, and he has to duck off, and he makes contact with Giuliano Romagnolo. Oh, no.
Man.
That was Sean Reese and Christopher Sherburne who were in a fight in front of him. Bennett just kind of an innocent victim on that one. Same thing with Romagnolo, and poor Giuliano, you can understand. He's pretty upset, and Bennett has to immediately come in. Unfortunately, it looks like he got a little bit too much damage from that slap into the wall.
You know, Adam, you were talking about tire strategy. I was trying to get some information. It was like, felt like I was asking George Costanza for his PIN number. But Bosco, they would not tell me if tires were going to be changed or not. We'll find out.
I mean, I would, you know, just experience in racing these cars. I mean, we got a track temperature right now of 76 degrees, and I just don't think we're going to be seeing massive tire wear. If somebody might try to change tires, but I think your race winner ends up not changing tires.
I have a little birdie behind the scenes telling us if they do, they're expecting it at the later on in the race, which would make sense.
Now the prototypes, I think they will. I think they will. And you know, some of the things that we're hearing as far as strategy and stuff might be on the second stop, and that would make sense for the prototypes.
Well, right now on screen, that is David Williams, our leader in the prototypes, starting from 7th, by the way. You know, we talked about staying out of trouble and avoiding the chaos here. Well, that's exactly what David has done. He does have pace, mind you, so this isn't sheer luck, because he's got about 2.2 seconds over Paul Darling right now. But David Williams is one who's been a regular in this series in times past, just haven't shown up in a minute, and clearly he has forgotten nothing of how to race in this series.
Funny you mentioned that. Jason DeVries, his comment was before the race that the first 2 rounds are about survival, then the real series starts in round 3. I guess Jason should have listened to his own posting there, read his own post, as he's out of the race due to attrition.
You're a little bit at the mercy of the racing gods sometimes, especially in Autobahn. So not sure how much of it was his fault. So much has already happened. I'm trying to go back and recall on my notes to see what's happened to Jason that's put him backwards. Let's check in on some of our battles in the GT-AM, since we haven't looked at them in a while. I do see that one of our real-world pros is fighting for 5th in the number 4 car. That's Joey Atterbury fighting with Ryan Wash. I'm going to do that too many times.
That's right. It all comes out in the wash. He's he's got around him there now. He's working on. The question is he going to be able to catch O'Keefe? Now, O'Keefe has been able to get around. I looked at what I was like, see, where did I find Schmidt? He got around Schmidt. In fact, Schmidt must be having some issues, as he's well down the order now.
Yeah, well, Schmidt's in 7th, and he's about 16 seconds back. We'll see if we can send our spotter to go look and see what happened to Schmidt, if he's got some notes on what happened to the 27. You can see the rear wing severely bent up. It must be down on
Welcome back to Daytona and Autobahn, where the prototypes, GT-AM and GT Pro classes are going at it. And sorry for the technical difficulties there. Unfortunately, a power outage struck our director, so we've been trying to get things going here again. But we are back with you. Just to recap you on a little bit of what you missed, Paul Darling is now in front of the prototype class. We talked a little bit about it before the power outage, and David Williams ended up having trouble getting off of pit road, ended up striking the edge of that pit road wall that seems to get at least one driver every single Daytona race today. That driver was David Williams. It cost him the lead. Now he's on a recovery drive. But Joshua Wolf is 7.5 seconds back right now in 2nd in the prototype class. Ross Booth is still leading the GT Pro class. Ross Booth has probably had the cleanest drive out of everybody in the field right now, it seems, as he continues to round his way around Daytona. Kevin Binkley is in 2nd in the GT Pro, followed by Marc-Antoine Thibault. That is your podium right now in the GT Pro class. We go back to the GT-AM class, and Kevin O'Keefe is now, well, losing the lead because he's coming out for pit stop. Yes, it's pit stop time. Go and talk about those GT-AMs here real quick.
In fact, they all are. Santana's been in, Rhodes has been in, O'Keefe coming in now. We were talking with Cyandra a little bit about the pit stop strategy. It looks like the AMs and the pros are all going to do it on 2 stops. We definitely think that the prototypes are going to make 3, and it looks like, Adam, looks like they've all gone. It looks like a splash and go is the way they're going to do it, rather than split it up into equal parts.
Yeah, and I think right now that'd be a great time to actually introduce Syandra here. And of course, great road racer. You've seen him all over the place here on iRacing and the GSRC broadcast. And Cy, thanks for joining us and stepping in here at the last minute. But I know you kind of got a little bit of a feel for the prototype class in particular. What can we expect out of those guys as far as pit stops here the rest of the way?
Well, so far we've seen nobody really try and take the two-stop strategy, but there may be a dark horse deep in the field that we don't know about just yet in all the chaos. But the main thing right now to watch out for is, like you said, the traffic situation at the moment. Nobody is really benefiting from the traffic, but I think the traffic management from Paul Darling has been pretty much on point so far.
Yeah, Paul Darling's been able to follow his teammate around with David Williams before the pit stops. And of course, the prototypes did all have their pit stops. We're looking right now at 9 prototypes at the front of this field before you start getting back into the GT Pros. And but only 8 of those prototypes on the lead lap currently. But Paul Darling leading him, and he is just on fire right now. Looks like that's Ross Booth on pit road. And what are we looking at here for GT Pro pit stops? They're going to be about the same as the GTAM?
Well, so far, most of the fuels, as we know, the cars here in Autobahn have a reduced fuel tank to sort of force those more unorthodox pit strategies. We're expecting a fill time around 20-22 seconds, and most of these cars have had a pit stop time about 23 seconds, so that adds up to what we were expecting. The main thing is whether these GTEs will take tires or not, and so far we don't have any reason to see that they will, but with the low downforce setups they're running at Daytona, they will be going through those rear tires, especially powering out of these hairpins.
Yeah, and of course, it's been my experience in plenty of Daytona races that, yeah, you got to protect those rears just a little bit, especially if you want to try to go for a no pit stop strategy over multiple stints, which is exactly what these guys are having to do here today. With no current battle in the prototypes, looking back at GT Pro, and I really don't see anything, but Soup, what are you seeing?
Well, I saw something interesting from Ross Booth. Maybe Syandra can go back to replay and tell me what happened. Ross Booth coming into pit lane looked like maybe he thought he was coming in too fast, and he broke and he slowed down and then basically stopped on pit lane as if he was out of gas, and then had to take a tow, I think, from like about 12 feet to his booth, to his stall where he sits now. Let me correct myself. Maybe it wasn't. It might have been Kevin O'Keefe. Might have been. I'm sorry. I think it was Kevin O'Keefe that I saw do that. So I'm not sure. Very, very strange for O'Keefe.
Yeah, O'Keefe's pulling away right now there. I know you're going to throw it to side, but I was also hearing him talk about possibly running out of fuel and actually apologizing to somebody.
Yeah, I think he might have been bringing it in dead stick, and then thought about he was worried about getting a speeding penalty, so he slowed down, but they didn't have any fuel left to speed back up to get to his box. Interesting.
Now, Cy also pointed out here, what did you notice here about Denise? He's pulling away here. Cy, what did you notice there about Denise? I see him pulling out of pit road. Did you see him do something a little bit different?
Yeah, as we saw Ross come in about 2 laps ago, but Dennis is only just leaving the pits now. That's something to keep in mind for, especially the GTEs. They have a little bit of a slower fill time compared to these prototypes. So any laps that you don't have to take at the end of the race in terms of fuel, that's about a 2 to 3 second advantage that you have over the next car. So by Dennis going a lap longer, he may have just gained 2 to 3 seconds over Ross.
All right, hey, let's go up to the prototypes here. Joshua Wolf is having to hold off a hard-charging David Williams. David Williams has gained 3 seconds on the leader here the last couple laps, and probably about the same on Joshua Wolf. And he's on the hunt.
Oh, that was good. He's a lone wolf.
Yeah,
dude. Getting out of the way there. That was Olivier Turcotte, making plenty of room for Wolf to get by.
You know, with that draft right now, David Williams is going to pounce. He knows he can't hang back here for long. He wants to catch up to his teammate Paul Darling, but he can't sit here and afford to play around with Joshua Wolf now that he's on a recovery drive. So if you're David Williams, how aggressive are you here trying to get around him?
Well, he's working on him right now. It could be all about traffic now. I don't think traffic's going to be an issue if they catch him on the banking. Here comes the tow. Let's see if he forces the issue down into corner number 1. Maybe we can ask Cy about this. I don't know the difference between the HPDs and the Dolores that are out there right now. And there goes Williams side by side. This will be interesting. Who can brake? What I have heard is that the braking point is a lot earlier in these cars. Let's see how it plays out here. Who's going to be brave? Oh, it's a lap car of Jared Eden there that's going to maybe solve the problem.
Oh, and both the lap cars of Eaton and Young Park. And
Young Park.
with both these guys here, the GT classes trying to get around the GT cars, and almost had a very interesting turn 1 there, but everybody's able to get away free, and David Williams really able to get away free. He's got some clear sailing, and he should be able to catch Joe Seifel here maybe by the time they get up on the banking.
I don't think Williams is going anywhere. I really think Wolf has the pace to stay with him.
Well, right now, of course, the sights is going to be how much time can he gain on his teammate Paul Darling. Could we still have a race and prototypes here by the time everything is done? Looking at the last couple of laps for David Williams, he's ran 34s and 135 and was in traffic, and kind of going up there to Paul Darling, and he's just been running 35s. So no wonder that David Williams is beginning hand over fist, and he wants as much clear track as he could possibly get here right now. And just kind of going through the field once again. Oh, who's that off? That's the 96 car. That is, or at least
Tim McLeish is
95 car, Tim McLeish.
Get a replay on this one. I don't think he hit anything. He just ended up in the grass, and I think he's going to be okay.
I think he, when he took the tow, I think he was like, I'm good. I'm good. The Mercedes did a little bit of off-roading. It stretched his legs a little bit. I think I'm going to go ahead and maybe call it a day. And indeed, he has resigned from the race, so his day is done. We haven't talked about these guys. They've had a little battle going here for a little bit. It's kind of deep in the field, but if we can go to Mark Herzog and Matt Owens in the GTAM class, they've had a good little fight here for a little while now, trying to get through the bus stop. And see there, Herzog
33rd. Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, I was going to say, Herzog starting to pull away a little bit from Matt Owens, of course, as soon as they start talking about it. That's the reverse commentator's curse soup. It's like the commentator's curse is for the drivers, is when something happens to them, and the commentator's curse for us is when we start talking about him and it goes away or something like that.
Well, Herzog qualified 6 spots above Owens, so Owens has had a pretty good run. He's trying to pick up one more on Herzog if he can. They got about 4 seconds before they get up to Dawson Brock.
And we got now Cody Franklin, Chris Sherburne here going at it down into turn 1, diving it in there. Chris Sherburne's going to run that a little bit wide, but that might get him a good exit. And have to deal with a little bit of prototype traffic there as well. Hearing somebody talk about slowing down. Oh, okay. Oliver Ducat's on the banking there. No need to go to it. Stay with this battle.
More chatter in this race than I've seen in an Autobahn race in a long time. A lot of it is traffic control. Some of it is in-race coaching.
Yeah. I think in-race coaching, that's a very polite way of putting that, Snoop. I like that. In-race coaching. Go up to Jimbo Pfeiffer in P5 here in your I believe Jimbo is running your GT Pros. Yeah, he's running GT Pros here today. And Jimbo's another one of those good guys that I like to talk about a lot. Raced with him for a number of years. I had a brief run-in one time with Jimbo Pfeiffer. It was at a majors race at Bristol, of all places, and that was about the only problem I think I ever had with him. But that just shows racers are like elephants. There, Soup. We remember everything.
My goodness, remind me not to get on your bad side. Chasing right behind him is Paul Slavonic. He's trying to get around Dale Green. He caught him in the bus stop. Now he's out on the banking. The red car of Slavonic on the hunt. He's about at 1.5 seconds behind Spiper. But Slavonic qualified well down the order. So Slavonic having a much better run as far as position gains compared to Jimbo.
Yeah, that battle's going to continue on here for at least a little bit. These guys are tough. I tell you what, going an hour and a half here at Daytona, single class, and a lot of these guys, the 3 classes, and a lot of these guys not getting a break at all. It is constant trying to have to deal with traffic, deal with positional battles inside your class. And these guys are probably going to sleep pretty good tonight. They're going to be pretty tired, especially guys like Jimbo here. Now we got Luke Schmidt and Ryan Walsh on the screen. Luke Schmidt looks like maybe he got, nope, rear wing still damaged. I thought for a second maybe he had some of that fixed there, Soup, but he's been dealing with that rear wing damage here the entire race.
Yeah, I know I've been doing a good job of it. I don't want to jump you around too much, but let's quickly go to car number 4. This is in the AM class. This is Joe Atterbury, our real-world driver. We're looking at it with Kevin Santana right behind him.
Oh, we're going to stick here with Schmidt here for just a minute with him and Ryan Walsh, and we'll get up to Atterbury in just a second. Looks like Ryan Walsh is going to complete that pass on Luke Schmidt and already start to pull away a little bit. Is he going to be able to come back to him here in the horseshoe? Not quite. And I believe that is Dawson Brock catching him behind him. But let's go ahead and go up to Atterbury. And he's actually got his hands full right now with Kevin Santana. Of course, Atterbury there. Why don't you tell us a little bit about him, Soup? I think we might have lost Soup here for a second. So, of course, he drives in the, I believe, the Pirelli World Challenge Series, real-world driver. Got a lot of seat time. I believe I've seen him actually race at COTA before, which has been pretty cool. So these guys, not bad, pulling in now some real-world drivers. Autobahn becoming a better series than it already was. But Kevin Santana, at least this time around, able to complete that pass on Atterbury. Still probably trying to get used to just racing with these guys in general. We talked about adaptability earlier on in the broadcast. That's another thing that people have to get used to is actually racing with one another. And that could be kind of a different dynamic as well. So that's kind of the battle right now in your GTAM class. Even though Joey Atterbury is a pro, he is currently racing in the GTAM here in Autobahn. Let's see, hearing something might be going on with Turcotte there, side.
Yeah, Turcotte's currently locked into a battle with Vince Bauer at the moment, coming out of second horseshoe here. Coming onto the banking, it's going to be interesting to see if Turcotte lifts and stays in the drafts behind Bow, or if he wants to just go out and pass him and get that track position and try to close the gap to Lindsay ahead. The main thing with these cars is to try and get that extra lap on fuel, like I was talking about earlier, get those 2 or 3 seconds. And then as a driver, you got to decide, is the guy ahead of me fast enough to keep that 2 or 3 seconds in hand, or is he slow enough that I lose those 2 or 3 seconds on track? It's a big guessing game, and sometimes you got to play the mind game as well, trying to stick behind somebody and keep them going. The main thing right now to watch for is see what Dennis Servetic is doing, because he was the one in the lead pack who went 1 lap longer compared to Ross Booth, Kevin Binkley, and Marc Antoine. So I'm interested to see how this race will turn out at the front and in the mid pack here.
You know, it is. Of course, it's a long Autobahn season. Every little spot counts, as often does in real long championships. And so that gets to be the part where, I mean, heck, you could be 1 extra lap here could get you, who knows how many points down the line at the end of the season. So that's kind of what these guys are looking at. Of course, these guys are going to have John Ulmer coming up behind him. That's that green prototype closing in now on Oliver Turcotte. Vance Bow is, looks like Ulmer might just be patient. Wait till after the horseshoe to start getting after these guys here now. Looking around the field, trying to see if I can find anything else here. Chris Sherburne and Cody Franklin were still going at it, but that battle's getting ready to get broken up by mid-class. And look at it, still following on with Ulmer, trying to work his way now around Vance Bow. Getting ready to come back out into the banking here, but he's going to clear Vance before that Corvette. Really, I really like, I got to go on a little bit of a tangent. I really like the new Corvettes. I actually saw the first my first new Corvette with my own eyes the other day. You know, it's just a beauty on the road. I'm sorry, I've got to say it. I like it.
I don't blame you. I've also heard it in person before, and it sounds pretty good. Even everybody knows the C7 was a monster, and that V8 roar was not something you can replace. But the new Corvette isn't a slouch either. I mean, nothing can compare to the RSR, of course. I think we both agree on that.
I think we could both agree on that as well. As hey, let's go back actually to Mark Herzog here real quick. He's fighting Matt Owens once again. Matt Owens trying to come back on him. They had Mark Wilson in the prototype, kind of broke him up for just a second, but right back at it. Herzog, he's been trying to hold off Matt Owens here for a while. I think these guys got shuffled up a little bit in the pit stops as Matt Owens was 3 seconds faster last lap than what Herzog is here. So really, it's one of those things. You catch him is one thing, pass him is another, and so far hasn't been able to do it. As Dawson Brock was the vehicle that you saw off the road up there, and that's actually a position for Herzog and Matt Owens. Go ahead and pull up the GSRC replay machine for that one. See what happened to Dawson. Dawson, a good friend of ours here on GSRC. Yeah, it's just, R8's great at that there, Cy. Just kind of, you know, locked up the brakes and wanted to shoot the other direction.
Yeah, the Audi being a mid-engine car like that, if you try to change your angle in the middle of the braking zone without sort of modulating that brake pedal, even with ABS, the back end will step out. These cars, especially the Audi and the McLaren in iRacing, are known for being a little bit tail happy, and you got to be careful into these braking zones, especially with the wings trimmed out the way they are for Daytona.
And let's talk about that real quick, Cy. I mean, you got a little experience setting some of these cars up. We know you're fast here. You know, there's obvious differences between the setups at a place like Le Mans or Spa compared to Daytona. What is a type of setup thing that happens here at Daytona as we're watching Vance Bow and Oliver Turcotte still going at it? It's Oliver Turcotte's trying to come back on Vance. What is something maybe in the setup that some people don't think about? Wings obvious, aero obvious, but what are some things people don't think about here?
Definitely how the banking affects the suspension. As you know, the banking basically causes you to squat down on the springs a little bit more. And that can adjust the aero platform, especially on cars where we don't have a lot of travel. And this is more of a prototype thing. Well, I'm a prototype driver. But in certain GT cars, you can get to the point where you bottom out on the springs and you hit the bump stops on some of these cars. And that can affect what the aerodynamic platform does. So sometimes you might have the nose pitched up really high, sometimes you have the nose pitched down. And that's something you got to watch out for.
And hearing Paul Lindsay had a problem. We've got the GSRC replay machine going up. Too hot into turn one, and kind of does the same thing that R8 just did. Kind of just loses the front end grip, especially starts sliding off and into the Armco there. Thankfully, did not hit the Armco with a 58G impact as we saw a few days ago.
No, but it is interesting that he decided to take a tow from there. Maybe he decided his car wasn't stable enough. It didn't look like he had that much damage.
Meanwhile, let's recap the leaders here real quick. It's been a few minutes. We're getting ready to get into the last 30 minutes of this race. We're probably going to see the prototypes coming in for their last stop here in the next couple of minutes. And actually, excuse me, it should be their next to last stop as we're expecting a splash and go at the end. But Paul Darling still in the lead of this thing. And it has been since the first round of pit stops where his teammate David A. Williams found the edge of the pit wall. The good news for David Williams is that he hit it soft. So David Williams currently in second place with not hardly any front end damage at all. In fact, now with David Williams, he's gaining time, a lot of time on his teammate that's currently in the lead, Paul Darling, with that gap now 6.5 seconds. It was down to 9.5 when David Williams made that pass around Joshua Wolf a few minutes ago, who's currently sitting in third. That is your podium right now in the prototype class. Ross Booth is your leader in the GT Pros, as he has been, I'm pretty sure, just about this entire race. He's been up there and just trying to run as clean of a race as possible. And he's got himself a great lead over top of Kevin Binkley right now. who's sitting in second. Marc-Antoine Diebolt right now sitting in third in your your GT Pro class. GTAM is going to go to Jeremy Rhodes, and this is a surprising one here, Cy, because Jeremy Rhodes has kind of had an exciting race, especially the first probably 10 laps or so of this race was very exciting for Jeremy Rhodes. He's been able to recover a little bit. Jordan Musser and Kevin Santana right now running in second and third, as they continue to make their way around Daytona International Speedway. Of course, the sun now fully down, lights now fully on, and Joshua Wolf beginning the round of prototype pit stops here, getting it out onto back out on the track. See if anybody's around him. He's going to have a lap car, the GTAM car of David Perry right on his inside coming out here going through the horseshoe. Should be no problem at all for Joshua Wolf. But that's going to be a question is when is everybody else going to start coming down here, Cy?
So it looks like Wolf pitted a lap early on the first sequence of stops, so it's not surprising you'd see him pit a lap early on the second as well. The more interesting thing for Wolf here is that he decided not to take tires. His pit stop was only 26 seconds long, which is only enough for fuel in this car. It may be worth not taking tires if Josh decides to, well, gamble a little bit, because tires are worth about 20 seconds in this car. And I don't know if you'll have 20 seconds of tire fall off within this last half hour or last 29 minutes of the race, give or take.
So strategy calls already playing out. So Cy, you'll have to talk to some of your prototype buddies here in the field at the end of this thing. We'll see what we got here as far as tire wear at the end of this. But Leif Peterson now, long-time Autobahn runner, and Carter Cunninger, they're both going to make their way down pit road really hot. They're able to get it wound down just to the timing stripe as they're going to head toward their pit boxes. We'll have to watch out to see if these guys decide to take tires or not. We'll watch the cars go up on the jacks if they do. If they don't, well, then we kind of know what they're thinking here. And so far, of course, they put fuel in these cars, I do believe, first. Is that correct, Cy?
That is correct. Fuel and tires are separate in this car. It makes for great strategy and some great alternative plays, so to speak, especially in some of these longer races. It's always interesting in the pit box as when you're either a driver waiting to get in or just driver in the car, just wondering how much you got to push the cars sort of keep the pace up, or save the tires and save 20 seconds, which is what these guys are doing right now.
So that's very interesting here, and it's great to have Cy on board with us here for tonight, being able to kind of give us that experience factor here. Of course, the prototype, the LMP2 is a newer car here to iRacing, just coming on just a couple of months ago. Been great. I have not been able to run many races with it, but ones I have, it's been an absolute blast to drive. If you have not driven it yet, I would highly suggest going to try to pick it up, because it is just it's nice. You don't have all the settings and everything else that you have like an LMP1 car. It's very, very easy to drive, in my opinion, so as far as prototypes go. So just something to think out there as we continue to watch the field circulate here. Is on your screen right now, trying to 26 machine, that's Cunninger. Carty Cunninger, of course, just finishing up his pit stop just a few minutes ago. And coming up on some frees, we got Santana now. We're going to go and follow along with him. Kevin Santana, of course, second in the GT Pro AM class, and he's fighting with Musser right now to try to keep that second position. Musser on a charge. Riding on board now with Jordan Musser, and Jordan Musser doing whatever he can here to get around Kevin Santana. And I'll tell you from experience, getting around Kevin Santana, not the easiest thing in the world to do. Kevin is a very, very fair racer, but he's a very tough racer at the same time. So that's part of the reason why he's made a lot of friends over the years too. I'll tell you that. He's a good guy, but passing is going to be very tough here. You're going to have to try to get the run. You're going to have to try to get him in a high-speed section. And I don't think he's going to try here at the bus stop, but he might be trying to set him up, maybe getting into turn one, as Jordan's going to brake a little bit early, let Kevin get away from him just a touch. He's going to go ahead and try to draft him here as they get back on the accelerator. Oh, wow. Kevin Santana, great bus stop there, is He pulled well away. I think Jordan may have gotten a little bit loose there, Si.
Absolutely. It's definitely one of those scary corners of the bus stop here. It's just about how much you can commit. Some of these GT cars, they can get a little bit unhappy with you when you try to drive it like a prototype in there. I speak from experience, unfortunately. But it's just about being gentle and just managing how that weight moves across the car, especially for that back and forth. It's quite different now, especially with the extra curbing compared to the older version of the track, but you can say it just adds more challenges.
It certainly does. I believe that is Paul Darling on your screen. And he just came down pit road. And so starting to see now the back half of the prototypes. And from here, Paul should be able to go the rest of the way here, don't you think, Si?
It'll be very, very tight. These cars, like I said earlier, have a restricted fuel tank down to 60 liters compared to the 75 that they usually get. And that brings down the stint times to just about 30 minutes. Maybe a little bit less depending on how heavy you are with your right foot. But Paul has been able to go consistently a lap or two longer than all of his other drivers or competitors in the P2s right now, and considering he's just left the pits and we only have about 25 minutes left, I'd say he's pretty good to go to the end. But I'd like to see that final lap and see if he actually makes it to the end or not without sputtering.
Well, there's that fuel mileage is something that's no stranger to races at Daytona either. These and you know that these guys have spent a lot of time trying to figure out how many laps per liter or gallon or however they got their sim set up and what units they're using to try to maximize that. Is on the screen right now. Still that battle between Matt Owens and Kevin O'Keefe. Matt Owens actually kind of fallen back just a touch to Kevin. And that gone broke racing machine there. That Ferrari, whoo, got a little tight right there for just a second. Start to head toward the kink. So now, with that stop, the stops in the prototypes, we mentioned that you can gain or lose a lot of time. And one guy that has now gained a ton of time, as we'll watch this pass here get complete, then we'll finish that thought as there goes Matt Owens around O'Keefe. So chalk another spot up there. But going to, so O'Keefe going up over, Matt Owens. But up front in the prototypes right now, we're really going to be watching here in the closing stages of this race. Paul Darling, that lead was, 9.5. Then we saw it and it was 6.5. Now it's down to 3.5 seconds over top of David Williams. David Williams is hard charging on his teammate right now, both members of that TNT racing team. And David Williams is on a mission here right now, Si.
It's going to be interesting what he does when he gets to the back of his teammate. We don't usually see team orders too much in Autobahn. It's most of a sort of race as hard as you can and take no prisoners sort of league. But if David does manage to get ahead of Paul, will he help Paul save fuel?
Oh, and Paul right there almost had a moment with Chris Sherburne. That's going to cost him a ton of time.
And the gap is down to under a second.
I'm going to pull up the GSRC replay machine here. Riding, I believe that is on board with Paul Darling here. Going into turn 1, you'll see Chris Sherburne there on the left in the Ferrari. And I think Paul made a rare mistake and tried to cut in while he was still kind of there, and that's going to cost him just a ton of time. And now David Williams is within firing distance here. It's going to take one good run from David Williams, and he might have a chance here of getting around his teammate. So great teammate battle getting ready to shape up here at Daytona. And that's what we got to look forward to here in the last 23 minutes of this race. Starting to see a few more pit stops out there as well. Out of, it looks like the GT Pros, GT AM cars, everybody's starting to make their way down pit road for their last stop. This will for sure be the GT class's last stop here today, Si.
Absolutely. And you have Ross Booth and Dennis Stavretic only separated by 9 seconds. Remember I said that you gain between 2 to 5 seconds depending on how much fuel you burn a lap here. And, well, I think Stavretic may not be quite close enough to Ross Booth to actually take advantage of that. If Dennis decides to turn up the wick after this last stop, we might see that gap drop, especially if Dennis has been conserving his tires.
So we'll be keeping an eye on Symmetrics there at the end of this race. Looking around the field here as well. We go back up to Williams here. David Williams and Paul Darling is now that gap is even closer, just a couple of tenths of a second, and they still got lap traffic that they are contending with here right now. Actually got an incident here. Cody Franklin and is it Jeremy Rhodes around.
That is not a good place to be turned
and the
around.
GT AM leader around in turn 1. They have lost a ton of time. They've been stuck like this for a little bit now. I don't know if we're going to be able to go back to be able to see a replay of this, but if I'm Jeremy Rhodes, I am not a happy camper right now. Little bit of contact, but that little bit's all it took.
And that is one of the worst places to be turned around on track.
I distinctly remember it was only a few years ago. One of the few races, the Delta Wing was doing really well. Blind corner incident coming around into turn 1 ended their night at the Daytona 24, and hard to believe that was just a few years ago, and it feels like yesterday with the way that 2020 has gone for everybody. But let's go ahead and back up front. We were getting ready to head up there. Let's go ahead and see how that battle is going there with Paul Darling and David Williams. David Williams now has definitely caught his teammate, and I think you're going to see a lot of patience here out of David Williams. For this spot here. Sai is, he knows he has time, he knows he's got the pace and the speed, but do you think maybe he might try to start maybe saving a little bit of fuel now that he's behind his teammate?
What I'm thinking is that if they are teammates, does David know that Paul has that one less pit stop to do? David knows that he's going to have to do an extra splash and dash here at the end, maybe look for another lap or so of fuel, but if he doesn't know that Paul Darling has that one stop less, he might fight harder than he otherwise would.
So, intrigue abound here in the final stages of the race. That's just how I like my races. Little bit of fuel strategy, little bit of teammate coordination here, or teammates fighting, depending on how you want to look at it. And that's Daytona. And somehow we've been able to survive Daytona with 60 plus cars. And there's been some attrition, but the racing is still just as intense here with these guys. Is still riding on board Paul Darling. Paul Darling trying to break that draft a little bit, get around, going 3 wide, getting around. I believe that was, trying to go back here, that was Shane Hunter and Paul Slavonic getting around those guys. Hearing Paul Darling actually getting onto the clutch. If you got your audio turned up, be able to hear him trying to do his best to save gas wherever possible, getting around the GT AM car there of David Perry. Most everybody's going to clear him, including Paul Slavonic back there.
So that tells us he's not comfortably home on fuel, so it'll be interesting to see if he'll actually make it that extra lap that he needs, or will he have to pit on the last lap and take that splash and dash like everybody else is planning to. This will be interesting based on what David Williams does as well.
And you do have the interesting, you do have the fact too that you also have a prototype up here in the form of John Ulmer that you're not going to get around as fast as some of the GT cars. So you might have an opportunity there to even kind of draft with another same class car, even though you're getting ready to lap them, and save a little bit more there for longer than what you would by trying to slip in behind some of these GT classes. At least that's what I think. Oh, did he get the wall a little bit right there? That was close.
Definitely a moment with some of these GT cars. You want that outside line coming into the bus stop so you can kind of hold as much speed as you can and also save fuel by carrying more speed in. But those GTs like that line as well, and coming up off the banking, they want to get to the right, and if you're not quite there, they might give you the squeeze.
Well, we saw the incident a few minutes ago with Jeremy Rhodes. We've been kind of waiting to see how it shook out and who would end up where. And Kevin Santana is now your new leader in the GTAM class, followed by Jordan Muster and Brian Wash. And I'll tell you, Kevin Santana has himself a pretty decent-sized lead over top of Jordan Muster right now. And if he could just keep it clean, I think he'll be all right. As we're seeing Jeremy Rhodes now coming off of pit road. Jeremy Rhodes was on a recovery drive and somehow ended up in the lead, and then it all just kind of went downhill. He'll see what few spots he's able to get at the end of this thing, but you can tell on his pit exit he's driving a little bit angry, so he might be a man on a mission when he gets out of the gets on the pit exit. But your leaders now into prototypes, going back to them: Paul Darling, David Williams. Still just car lengths between them here at Daytona as they get back up onto the banking. There's definitely some fuel saving going on here. Let's, if we can, Joe, if we could go ahead and compare lap times between these two. I'm actually more interested to see if the laps have fallen off for these. Yeah, okay. So these guys very much are capable of running 34-second laps. Right now, they're running 36-second laps. You see that they are staying behind John Ulmer. They have not made an attempt to really get past John Ulmer here at this point to lap him. So they are saving all the fuel they can.
Interesting. Joshua Wolf has just pitted for his splash and dash, about 7 seconds long. So, and the time between the cones at Daytona to drive through pit lane, it's about 20 seconds. So it's going to be about 27 seconds to do that splash and dash. Now the question is, who's within 27 seconds? Joshua Wolf is within 30 seconds of David and Paul. If Josh pushes now and David and Paul don't make that extra lap that they need, they will be within striking distance of Wolf.
And that's going to be the interesting part here. We were talking about Wolf. He was my pick. I'll be honest. I considered him also a little bit of a dark horse, and he's stayed in the hunt. So he might just, right now he figures doing the opposite thing of what David Williams and Paul Darling is doing. Might just be the thing to pay off. And I tell you one thing I did see when he came back out on this track, he was cutting through the lap traffic like a madman. So he knows full well what he is trying to accomplish here. Go over to Ross Booth. We haven't talked about Ross in a while. Ross, of course, leading the GT Pro category. And just a super clean day out of Ross Booth. We haven't talked about him a lot because there hasn't been a reason to talk about him a lot, because he's been clean this entire way almost. And I think he's can we get a gap on him going back to Kevin Binkley, who's running in second? So 36-second gap. All he's got to do is just bring it home at this point and keep the car clean. I think that's going to be something he's going to be very easily able to do. Watching the leaders here once again, Paul Darling, David Williams kind of got away from the draft just a little bit. They were trying to use that lap vehicle. And that was, let's see who that was. That was Thibault that they were just getting around. And now they got a mess here. Oh, that was almost a moment. Dale Green up there in the Mercedes. Now they're three wide for the lead with the two outside cars. Your prototype's going for it. Teammates going for it. Paul Darling's going to be able to retain the lead. Ends up having to hold up Thibault here. Almost came back at him. Now they're finally like, okay, hammer down. We're getting around Ulmer. And Ulmer is now behind these guys. No more fuel saving. I think they just went hammer down. Take a look at the GSRC replay machine. This got hairy in a hurry, Cy.
Well, there's very little love between teammates at the moment. There was no hold barred there, for certain.
That is definitely for certain. Watch it once again here as they come back into turn one, and then coming outside, going through that left and the right-hander, and then coming up to the horseshoe, it just got active in a hurry. Ulmer kind of swings out to the wide side. The lap GTAM car to the inside. Those guys going, taking it 3 wide, trying to get through there. And they were like, just hammer down. We got to get through the lap traffic. And I don't think Paul's clutching it now as much as what he was a few minutes ago. So, yeah, let's go right on board here with Paul, looking out his front end. Actually, can we look out his rear wing real quick and just see how close his teammate is? I think we got that camera out there, too. I
think I may have just seen Williams lift off there a little bit coming to the
Yeah.
braking zone. So,
I think might have caught Ulmer off guard a little bit. Another lap
clock
vehicle
ticking.
there. Another lap vehicle there, kind of getting closing it up a little bit. That was our friend Dawson Brock, and I think we're getting close to having a few guests here in the booth, and also Soup is being able to get back online as well here. So, just as I say that, I think I cursed Soup. That would be the first time I cursed somebody here for today, unfortunately. But Lionel DePratt now is the one that's unfortunately in front of the leader here, holding them up just a little bit. But man, I tell you what, this is going to be tight here. Lap traffic very well could be the deciding factor in this race, Si.
The management key portion of this race has been completely, or what's the word? As an essential. We've seen a lot of top-rated guys get, have been retired early. Giuliano has been retired due to traffic. We've had Jason DeVries retired due to traffic. We've seen John Ulmer. We've seen some of these other drivers such as Robert Tinsley, and even I would say Billy Smith had issues in traffic, albeit in their own class. But like I said, and like you said earlier, I think it's more about attrition and managing the traffic than actual outright pace.
Yeah. And mixing in just a little bit of luck to go along with it too. We've definitely seen some bad luck here tonight related to traffic. And I think these guys, as we're watching Mark Herzog coming back out at pit road right there, we got Cunningham and Leif Peterson now on your screen, 10th of a second between them, with Leif trying to find a way around Carter. Not quite able to get there through the bus stop, coming back out on the banking. It's still got eyes at the front though. And Paul Darling and David Williams, once they cleared it, I think they went back into fuel saving mode because they have not pulled away from John Ulmer at all. All right, so I mentioned we got a guest here with us here a little bit. Adam Lindgren coming in to join us here for a little bit. And Adam, thanks for coming in here on short notice. Great action here at Daytona.
Yeah, fantastic action as usual. We're seeing some great action up at the front of that prototype field that you guys have been watching between Paul Darling and David A. Williams. Some great action up there with Ross Booth also only 8 seconds ahead in the second class as well. So it's just very intense battling here in Autobahn as we're accustomed to seeing.
Yeah, and I think a large part of the I believe that might have been pit stop related there. Now that's down to 8 seconds. So we might have seen that 30 seconds there. But either way, Ross Booth here, he's had a clean day, Adam. It's been great to see him have a clean day. The GTAM has been exciting as well. We saw the Jeremy Rhodes accident a little while ago, which gave Kevin Santana the lead. We're getting close to about 10 minutes here to go. So we go and give Kevin Santana a little bit of love here before we get a little closer to the end of this race. It's still got eyes on the front of the field just in case something happens up there. But, excuse me, I get a little choked up. But as in fact, we actually go up there here for a moment. John Ulmer giving a little bit of a light flash to David Williams and Paul Darling. These guys are going to come out here with a lot of GT traffic in front of them. So we might actually want to stay with the leaders here for a little bit. Is that Paul Darling, David Williams continue to fuel save. And now going to have to fight through traffic once again. Last time we saw this, Saya got super exciting.
Oh, absolutely, but I think neither of them are solid on their two-stop strategy right now. And I'm keeping an eye on Joshua Wolf right now. He is 2 seconds or so a lap faster at the moment, between 1 and 2 seconds depending on traffic. And he's within 26 seconds now. So if Paul and David don't make their fuel number, they will get passed by Joshua on the last lap, I believe.
Yeah, and that fuel number is really important because David A. Williams sat behind Paul Darling as they came down the front stretch. Both of them were a good 15 miles per hour slower than John Ulmer. That's why John came with such a great speed. I think both of them are at least half throttling and lifting and coasting going into the corners here around Daytona. Both of them are really tight on fuel, I think.
And I would have to think that the smart play might have been to let Ulmer back by them going through turn one last time by and try to draft off him a little bit, let him be the one to try to cut through some of this lap traffic. But that did not happen. And now they're going to be under the gun from the Wolfman himself, Joshua Wolf. As we look at the lap comparison here to see just how much faster he's been than David Williams. He's got 3 prototype cars right there, right through the bus stop. You know he is hot. He is forcing the issue. Oh! Gets a little loose on the exit. Woo! John gosh. Let's dial it back just a notch. Dial it back just a notch, buddy. Let's ride on board here with Joshua Wolf. Tell you what, Adam, talk us through this.
Yeah, Josh Wolf just coming up on some lap traffic, a very intense lap moment. He's going to try and take it to the inside through the bus stop, which is always a sketchy proposition. I'm not sure whether he saw that GTE car, but he's well alongside, so he gets in here, and it just gets a little bit loose through the center of the bus stop, doesn't realize it until the exit. Almost full opposite lock to get that thing going once again, but managed to keep it off the wall, still gaining time on the leaders.
I mentioned that Joshua Wolf is one of those guys that's great at feeling and judging where the air is going to be. That time it was great in feeling where your front wheels are and being able to yank that wheel back in place at the right times. He is on a tear, and that goes to show that he's got a lot of work to catch these two with Paul Darling now up there with David Williams. Paul Darling, of course, remember earlier on, if you're just joining us, took the lead earlier on after David Williams had hit the end of the pit road on the first round of pit stops coming out of these guys. And of course, they both got up front after Giuliano Romolalo ended up having issues right at the start of the race with the lap vehicle, same with Jason DeFree. So lap attrition playing a role in the prototype class, but has led to this exciting race here between teammates and being hunted down by the likes of Joshua Wolf.
So, Cy, one of the things that I'm thinking about if I'm David A. Williams is when am I going to make my move? Obviously, assuming I'm going to be able to make it to the end on fuel. Do you make that before the bus stop or after the bus stop? What's the right time to make that pounce on Paul Darling and try and get the pass on the teammate?
So the Dallara definitely has, despite it being closed cockpit, punches a bit of a bigger hole in the air compared to the HPD. You're able to get more of a drop from further back. So I think out of the bus stop would be the best, but the Dallara also has a lot of aero wash as well, and the bus stop being such a fast corner, you might not be able to close close enough to get that run to the finish line. So maybe out of turn 6 coming onto the banking would be the best place to sort of get that run and sort of send it into the bus stop, but it's always scary going too wide through there.
That gap stays the same between these two. They have also not dropped Ulmer. Ulmer is still kind of hanging back there as these guys continue to fuel save. Joshua Wolf, with that little bit of a bobble, did not gain a whole lot of time that last time by. But at this point, he doesn't have to, as the is definitely on there. Oh, he had another bobble we're hearing. Is the car okay? Here's out of turn 6 a moment ago. Hearing Dawson Brock also having an issue. We'll go take a look at that here in a few minutes. Josh here getting ready to come through. Turn 6 right there, coming back up onto the banking. Yeah, okay, that banking just a little bit, but that's all it takes because you're delayed on getting back onto the throttle, Adam, on one of the fastest portions of the racetrack.
Absolutely, and just a little bit of a moment there. This is Dawson Brock recovering from his incident that he had back there battling for the 9th position with Chris Sherburne. This is, I believe, him and Chris, so we're going to see him go deep into turn 1, and, well, rather turn 3, and get very, very loose, spinning around, and Chris Sherburne gets hit, Sherburne. Yeah.
Which Sherburne himself is a fair number of incidents here today. He's been in and around, none of which really his fault. It's just been bad luck for him. Back up to the front now with the prototypes, Darling and David Williams. We've also still have our eye on the other classes. Roscoe is still in the lead of the GTE Pro, and Kevin Santana still in the lead of the GTAM. You can see the gaps there on the scoring tower on the left as we head to the closing stages of the race. This is the top category that is in contention here. Everybody else has kind of settled out a little bit. They just got to finish the race. This race is not decided, and not decided by a long shot. Cy, what is your gut telling you right now? Have these two saved enough fuel to maybe be able to go the rest of the way, or are they going to have to come back in?
Ooh, I think David being in the draft has a bit of an advantage, but Paul's been able to go a lap longer than David, so David's had to do a lot of extra fuel saving. I don't think David's going to have it to go to the end of the race here. He's going to have to pit, so he's going to have to either get the hammer down and get the gap to Joshua so he can pit and come out ahead, or he can just stay where he is and just save as much as he can behind Paul. It's going to be interesting to see if Paul makes it, though, given the way he's been saving, even though he's had David right behind him, and whether they're communicating on that since they're teammates.
Yeah, and that was John Ulmer slipping through. John recovering one of his laps, just moving up onto possibly the lead lap.
Yeah, it is back on the lead lap, and that's kind of what I was thinking they should have done a little while ago, and draft off those guys now. And at least Paul Darling and Dave Williams can use the Ulmer's draft, try to save just a little bit more. We'll continue to watch Josh Wolf just continue to try to push the issue, and he's really trying to dig and get up here to these guys.
And Adam, Leif Peterson just came into the pits for a splash and dash, just came in, got some fuel, and is back out. So down in from 4th position.
Yeah, so Leif Peterson, another one of the prototypes that has kind of come in. Of course, we saw Joshua Wolf with the trying to basically force a strategy, do exactly the opposite of what Darlings and Williams is doing to try to essentially do something different. But the gap continues to fall between him and Leif Peterson. Maybe could gain a few positions here as well, as we still got to watch Carter Kundinger and see what he ends up doing as well. They had a little bit of a fight going on earlier with Kundinger and Leif Peterson that we saw here on the broadcast. So these guys, as I mentioned, pushing the issue. This is going to be tight. As we watch John Ulmer now come down. This is going to be for his splash to go. Of course, he gives up that lap, and it's now fallen back to being a lap down.
Yeah, things getting very interesting here as far as the fuel strategy is concerned for a lot of these P2 machines. That Leif Peterson did slip out. Oh, and looks like Carter Kundinger's come into the pits as well. But Leif Peterson did slip out into a battle with Bradley Haley and Robert Canchin for the 5th position. They're all within a second of one another. So look for 5th place to be in high contention towards the end of this race as well, as we're closing into the last minute and a half as we look at Carter Kundinger on pit road. 5.7 seconds for fuel. All
right, so answers are getting ready to be had. I would imagine, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, next time by we should get the white flag for Paul Darling and David Williams here. And will they decide they're going to go for it, or will they come down for that quick splash and go with the possibility of having to hold off Joshua Wolf right at the very end? That's going to be the big question. We've got just a few seconds before we're going to get the answer here, as they are rounding NASCAR 3, coming to NASCAR 4, onto the front straightaway, heading toward the white flag. And also, if they're going to go for it, they are going to go ahead and see a great teammate battle here as well, if they decide they can actually make it to the rest of the way. So we're actually watching a few other battles that we'll get to here as soon as these guys start coming across the line, but we're going to stay with them here for the final lap. That's the lap car vehicle. That was Dawson Brock once again going through the first horseshoe. Williams right there. I don't think Williams is going to pounce until probably at least the back end of the bus stop. What do you think, Adam?
Yeah, I'm thinking I personally would actually bounce before the bus stop and then try and hold him off by pushing him wide through 3 and 4. But that's because I like to surprise my competitors a little bit, because I think that Paul Darling's going to be wise to David Williams trying to make the move out of the bus stop. But let's see what David does as we're getting ready to go onto the banking for the final time for these P2 cars. Oh, look at this! Paul Darling a little bit wide. David A. Williams can't get down the traction. It's going to be close. These two guys now in drafting. David Williams with a decent run, but they've got Eric Garnet and Dale Green up ahead, and they're battling for position 10th in their class. They're holding up all the road. It's going to be 3 wide, splitting them.
That gets exciting right there. Heading toward the bus stop, under power braking now. Paul Darling's going to cut it in, and great exit from Paul Darling. Looks like David Williams is going to clip that cone a little bit. Hopefully they get a slowdown out of it, but he's going to be too far back here unless something happens. In fact, he is dropping off. Is he out of fuel? No, he still has fuel, but then racing.
Oh, Paul Darling's out! Darling's out!
Darling's out. Are they both going to make it? Are they
both out?
Oh, I think David Williams let his teammate get it right there. Wow. We knew that was going to be close. All right, we go back to Ross Booth. He's coming around. He should be able to take the GT Pro lead here, or the win here, very easily coming down the front straightaway. Congratulations to Ross Booth. That is your GT Pro winner. And where is your GTAM? I'm looking for him. There is. You got Kevin Santana now on your screen. Great run today from Kevin Santana. He's got a little bit of a ways to go before he comes all the way around. And tell you what, you know, we were able to focus a little bit on the GTAM class here today, and they put on some great racing. I do not. Musser is a ways back right now. Yeah. So leaders were between them. So Musser's race is done. We're just waiting for the leader to come across the line. And Adam, I got to thank you here while the broadcast is still coming on to step in real quick. Cy, you did a fantastic job as well. Of course, if you're just joining us, a few technical issues tonight that we've overcome, able to bring you the end of the race here. Watching Kevin Santana, Brown NASCAR 3, coming around to NASCAR 4, coming to the front straightaway here in just a moment. A little bit of draft. No fuel issues here, as Kevin Santana is going to win your GTAM class, the season opener at Daytona. Congratulations to your class winners. We'll be back maybe with a few interviews coming up here in just a few minutes. Welcome back. What an exciting race here for Autobahn. We just got done with 90 minutes at Daytona. And I tell you what, there was a lot to talk about here for tonight. Lots of action on track, lots of lapped action. And it ultimately came down to a field strategy race at the end between teammates, but it was a great field strategy race. Don't get me wrong there. Hey, let's go ahead and congratulate Paul Darling on winning the Autobahn race here at Daytona, opening round of the season, followed very closely behind by David Williams. We'll get a chance to talk to them, and we'll see who was running out of fuel where and what happened with that one. We'll talk about that. Joshua Wolf coming up, ultimately just short. He tried to do the opposite strategy of Darling and Williams, did not get quite there. And so we'll talk about that here in a few minutes as well. But great race there. Carter Cunninger coming in fourth, Leif Peterson fifth, Bradley Haley in sixth, Robert Conchian in seventh, John Ulmer one lap down in eighth position, and Mark Wilson and David Warner round out your top 10 and your front part of the podium field. Let's go ahead and kick it over to Adam.
Absolutely, Ross Booth taking home the GT Pro the GT Pro win here, with Kevin Benkley coming home in a not too distant second, only 8 seconds behind. Dennis Savertek coming home in third position. Behind him is Marc-Antoine Thibault in fourth. There was a pretty decent fight for fifth place between Jimbo Pfeiffer and Paul Slavonic, coming home in sixth position, with Vance Bow coming home in seventh, and Olivier Turcotte coming home in eighth position, with Christopher Pietz coming home in ninth, Young Park in 10th, Sheldon Rosenbaum 11th, Jerry Mueller 12th, and Lionel Duprat rounding out your finishing drivers as far as the GT Pro is concerned. And then we have the GT AMS, which is Kevin Santana coming home with the win, Jordan Muser coming home in second place. Kevin Santana actually had to do an extra lap than all the rest of these guys. And then we have Joey Atterbury coming home in the third spot, with Ryan Wash in fourth, and a tight battle between Luke Schmidt, Kevin O'Keefe, and Mark Herzog for fifth, sixth, and seventh positions in the GT-AM class. Matt Owens coming home in eighth, Chris Sherburne comes home in ninth, and then Dale Green in 10th position. Eric Gaudreau-Drapeau coming home in the 11th spot, with Dawson Brock in 12th. Ryan Robertson 13th, Sean Reese 14th, Jared Eden 15th, and Joey Trungale 16th. Jeremy Rhodes, one of your few finishers. We have drivers who had a lot more trouble, starting with Dominic Dernberg, and you'll be able to read the rest of the results on your screen. And back to you, Adam.
And of course, one of those ones you see is Romelu De Vries, all a bunch of guys that had a lot of problems toward the beginning of this race. But we got your race winner, Paul Darling. I've turned a lot of laps with Paul Darling over the years. Paul, congratulations on winning the Autobahn race here tonight. And it was an exciting one. I got to know, how close were you on fuel?
Very first stint, actually ended up sputtering because of the pace lap, ended up sputtering into the stall. But I mean, I was doing everything I could to save as much fuel as possible, like clutch in, lifting way before any of the markers even started on some of the corners. But just glad it was able to work out.
Well, that's I would say worked out definitely for sure there, and you gotta think though, back to the beginning part of this race and some of the lap traffic, especially when lap traffic guys first started getting into it. How close was it? Because it looked really exciting here on the broadcast.
Yeah, I'm glad it was exciting. It was insane from the driver's seat here. There was a lot of some crazy three wides, and then I do want to apologize to Jason. I was just trying to find our contact there. That was a really close deal. But it was just a lot of chaos, as you'd find in any opening Autobahn race.
And that's I would say chaos. That's a good fitting description right there for that. And for the prototypes though, I mean, first Autobahn race with the prototype with the LMP2 as a prototype. What'd you think?
Sorry, say that again.
What did you think of the prototype with the LMP2 as the prototype car? I mean, what did you think of it as first race?
I have a totally love-hate relationship with this thing. It is such a pain in the butt to set up, and David has been instrumental in trying to get our setup as good as possible. Absolute pain in the butt to set up, but when it's, I don't know, when you get in the zone with it and you're just on the limited grip with the tires, the tire model feels really good. It's an absolute blast to drive.
Well, hey Paul, congratulations again. Anybody you'd like to thank here real quick?
Again, double shout out for David Williams for all the hard work on the setup that he's put in since I've been able to practice as much for the setup side on this one. And GTR Simulators are team sponsor for TNT. Definitely got to give them a shout out.
All right. Well, thanks you very much for joining us here, Paul. And we'll get to David Williams in a few minutes. But first, we want to go ahead and get to Ross Booth, the GT Pro winner here for tonight. Ross, hey, man, congratulations coming home with the class win. And you had a relatively clean race compared to a lot of the other classes here for today. Go ahead and tell us a little bit about it.
Wow. I can't believe it, to be honest with you. I first off couldn't believe I got pole, and then couldn't believe how this whole race ended up for me. I was sweating buckets. Kevin was catching me right before the last pit stop there, and I had a lot of trouble through traffic. Just seemed like every lap I was getting held up through the infield or through the bus stop. But he might have had trouble after the pit stop, but I had like 8-second lead and sort of just cruised home to the win.
Well, you mentioned the word cruise, though. I mean, I can't imagine that you it was all cruising, though. I mean, tell us about any kind of exciting moments that you had.
There was quite a few moments where the GT3 car would miss the bus stop, and the bus stop is a really high commitment corner. So we had a few butt puckering moments through there, trying to get the car slowed up and not run over them. But overall, I had, like you said, I was kept it out of trouble. I think I only had 2 incidence points. Got one right on the first lap. I couldn't believe it. I'm super pleased.
Well, and that's it's great you're able to keep it up, keep it off the wall. That's always great there. But one place that we're coming to here in a couple of weeks that you may have a little bit harder problem. It's a completely different racetrack. Is Sebring? Are you gonna be able to do a repeat performance there?
I sure hope so. Spent a lot of time figuring out the setup for Daytona, and you sort of throw away the Daytona setup for Sebring. So sort of back to the drawing board, and we'll see what we can do next in a couple weeks.
Well, hey, appreciate you joining us here, Ross. Anybody like to thank here?
Just huge shout out to everyone that gets everything together in the league. Shout out to my teammate Jason. He really helped me with dialing the car for this week's race, and yeah, I'm just stoked. Thank you.
All right. Well, hey, Ross, congratulations again, and maybe we'll talk to you here in 2 weeks. We've got to be able to grab Kevin Santana here. He's got the GTAM class win, and really was able to kind of get in there. And so we'll kind of over to Adam Lindgren here with Kevin.
Yeah, Kevin, definitely an interesting race. A huge field to start off the season for sure. But talk to me about your race and especially about gaining those 3 spots to the win tonight. How hard was it to get back up there tonight?
As I always do on 90-minute races, I took tires. It always seems to work for me.
Yeah, taking tires does seem to be a huge benefit as well. But how tough was the traffic out there tonight? Was especially with the addition of the P2. How different is it from seasons past?
It didn't seem like it was all that much different. I mean, the P2 between the HPD from previous.
Absolutely. So not that much different as far as you were concerned. But that being said, the field's a pretty big field for tonight. Did that affect how you navigated traffic at all? And did it cause you any trouble tonight?
I didn't have any trouble with anything.
Absolutely. And considering you finished well ahead of Jordan, what do you think made the difference tonight, aside from the tires? Were you doing any fuel saving towards the end of the race, or were you good on fuel, especially to go that extra lap?
I was good on fuel.
Absolutely, Kevin. Well, it's great to see you up there at the top of the podium once again in the Autobahn series. And is there anyone you want to give a thanks for this win of the opening round tonight?
As usual, thanks for everybody that puts it on, and John for sponsoring us with this.
All right. Well, thanks for talking to us, Kevin. And it's great to see you once again in the series, and we look forward to seeing you race next week.
As long as my new job at the talk radio station keeps giving me Mondays off, I'll be here.
All right. Thanks for talking to us, Kevin. That was Kevin Santana. And back to you, Adam.
Yeah, so let's go pull in David Williams here, and Cy Andra is going to catch up with second place overall and second place in prototypes.
Well, David, I'm going to start you off with the same question that we asked the winner. How tight were you on fuel at the end of the race there?
I had 0.1 liters left.
So you were sputtering at the end there.
No, I wasn't sputtering. I would have crossed the line just right, but going through the bus stop faster this time through, I missed the turn completely. We had talked about going side by side at the start-finish line to, for a nice little picture, and I just blew it like a bonehead.
That was something we were discussing in the booth, whether you lifted a little bit to give your teammate an easier time at the end. Were you guys in communication during the race? How much were you talking about your fuel numbers and whether who was leading and who had to drop back a little bit?
I would say throughout the entire race, we got a spotter and strategist on board now that really helped us out. Trevor was amazing. I would say the entire last stint for me, we were constant communication on how I could hit those fuel numbers, and thanks to Trevor's accurate calculations and giving us the target numbers we need to hit, and Paul backing down a little bit so I could draft, we made it. It was pretty awesome.
Well, teammates working together is always good to see. Last question. What were you worried about Wolf at all, the way he was closing in at the end of the race there? Were you worried at all about not being able to hit your fuel numbers?
No, not really. Once again, Trevor was in constant communication, so he was keeping us calm, letting us know, hey, you got 30 seconds back, you're 25 seconds back, you're 20 seconds back, just giving us time marks and telling us you need to hit this lap times, you need to hit this lap time, etc. So really, with him on the microphone and in our ears, man, it was a very relaxing race, probably the most relaxed and the most excited I've ever been for a second place.
All right, one last little quip. What was going through your mind when you sort of touched the end of the pit wall there coming out on your first stop?
Panic, probably. This entire race, I dealt with my Oculus flickering because I guess there haven't been that many cars on track the entire time, so I thought I had my settings right. And this entire race, I was dealing with flickering, fluttering, 45 FPS. Going into turn one, looked like I was playing pole position. It was quite interesting. It was a rough race. I've got a headache from the flickering.
Well, I'm glad you made it to the end, David. Is there anybody you'd like to thank before we send you out here?
Yeah, thank you to you guys for broadcasting, as always. Thanks to Omer and his team for putting Autobahn together. Thanks for DMG United and TNT Racing for allowing us to come together and put this team together. And once again, thanks to Paul, Trevor, and Joey all for the help throughout the week, and looking forward to an exciting season.
Thank you, David. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
See you guys.
And thanks again to everybody that was able to come in here tonight for interviews. And it was, tell you what, it's definitely, not even going to lie, not going to cover up one of the more interesting GSRC broadcasts we've had in a while, but we got through it. And it's a lot thanks to you out there watching. It's also thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcasts that are listed on your screen. Additional thanks to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. And also, thanks to the team today. Man, we got to add some names to this. Of course, you got Sean, who helped start the race as far as director, Bill, and of course, Adam Lindgren coming in here at the last minute, Doug and Beard always running the cameras. I want to give a very special thanks also to Joe Peak, and who had to step in as director, and also Cy Andra. Cy, you did fantastic. Stepping in, you weren't supposed to really, you're supposed to kind of watch, observe. Instead, you ended up right there co-commentating with me almost the entire race. So thank you very much. But hey, that's one thing that's great about GSRC. We'll always pull it together. And if you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com, or you can check out our social media on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at /Global SimRacing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. If you'd like to support the channel, go check out our merchandise store at gsrc.store.nb global.com. The link is in the description below here on the YouTube video. Don't forget to head on over to our YouTube page as well and hit that big red subscribe button, and so you don't miss a moment here on the Global Sim Racing Channel. Hey, we've been talking about 2 weeks, Sebring, Monday, December 21st at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And it'll be an exciting one for sure, especially if we put on another great race like we did here at Daytona tonight. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out, mark them down in your calendar. We hope you've enjoyed joining us here tonight as much as we've enjoyed bringing this racing to you. So we hope to see you back again here real soon. But until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.